You're tuned in to Around the Lens, the internet's only live streaming roundtable discussion podcast, featuring Zach Roberts, Ron Hamilton, Travis Keys, and your host, David J. Murphy. Hello and welcome to Around the Lens, episode 168. I'm your host, David J. Murphy. Joining me, as always, as my co-host, Zach Roberts. Hello, Zach.
Hello. Hello. How goes it?
Good, good. And, of course, Travis Keys. Hello, Travis.
Hey, guys. What's going on?
Not much. How are you?
Doing very well. What's new in your neck of the woods?
Well, yesterday I celebrated my 38th year of life on this planet, so
hey,
congratulations to me. Had a nice little party over the weekend.
I celebrate mine on Wednesday.
Oh, this coming Wednesday?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Fellow Aries. Yep.
Jeez. How old will you be, buddy?
There's a 0 in it. That's as far as we're going.
Ooh, wow. Triple digits. That's amazing. You look great for 100.
20 years old.
It's true.
Wow.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, I just turned 47, so I'm pretty sure I'm the resident elder here this evening.
I will go with that one.
When was your birthday, BP?
February 26th.
Okay, so not too far off. Not too far.
No, not too long ago, and I am officially. Well, I've been on the back nine of my 40s, but I can see it a lot. I can see the hole a lot closer now than I could a couple of years ago. Of course, I need the glasses to. I need the glasses to see it. But
oh my gosh. Talking about getting older, obviously I'm towards the tail end of my 30s. I'll be entering into the 40s era, and you're obviously, like you said, on the tail end of your 40s, entering your 50s.
Yes.
Are there any sort of thoughts you have about comparing those two time frames? Any differences between ending 30s going into 40s versus ending 40s going to 50s? Anything?
Truthfully, you start to realize what you're willing to put up with and what you're not. Both professionally and personally as well. Friends that you had, you realize what you're willing to put up with a friend, what a friend should do, what a friend should be. And you realize, at that point, you learn to kind of trim the fat and not be upset about it, because you get to a point where it's just all about personal happiness and making sure that everyone that surrounds you doesn't necessarily bring something to the table, but it doesn't drag you down either. Yeah. So I think that's the biggest thing. And as I approach 50s, now it's a little bit more along the lines of what do I enjoy? What makes me happy? And not worrying about what and this sounds worse than I mean it, but not doing for everybody else and kind of putting myself ahead of that a little bit here and there. So that's and when I say a little, my wife and I than anything else, Okay. Trying to make things happen for us. Why is it that Zach always disappears once we start? This has happened 3 times now when I've been on the show.
He gets nervous.
Zach just disappears like a fart in the wind, man. Just off he goes. Sorry, but yeah. So
he gets shy amongst your presence. He's so intimidated.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think we've probably just spent so much time together.
I think he went. You know what? I'm trimming the fat right now. Goodbye.
Now, you know what?
Forget this. I'm out.
Your late 30s are a lot of fun, but your late 40s are even more fun, and you start to realize, like, you allow yourself to have a little more fun. You're not worried about what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, what? I couldn't agree with you more. It seemed same exact kind of feeling I was having, like, when you really kind of feel about friends and cutting the fat and stuff like that. But also, I think you learn to forgive and say sorry, and you understand it a little more. You don't hold grudges. You don't.
I'll hold a grudge like a son of a bitch. I don't know. That's
to the day you die.
Some of them just aren't worth having. I mean, if it's that much, like, I'm gonna hold a grudge, then they really must have done something wrong.
Yeah, like if you cross me or my friends or my wife, like, you're dead to me. Like, I'm Jewish, but I've got like the Italian side running somewhere in me where like once you get to a certain point,
I got frozen horse heads in the garage. I'm ready to dish them out.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was not the perfect person when I was younger, and I've always tried to make up for the shortcomings that I had in my my late teens and into my 20s. But as I grow older, and I realize, like, there's a difference between bad behavior because there may be an outside influence or something like that, or bad behavior because you're an asshole. Right. I would, like, there's a difference. If you're an asshole out of the box, nothing's going to change. I mean, I'll run into people on Facebook from time to time from high school that just haven't changed at all. And I'm like, we've been out of high school for 30 years. If you haven't changed, we've got nothing in common. As opposed to somebody like me or some of my other friends that, had a rougher time growing up, trying to find our place, that have kind of leveled out, and you realize, oh, okay, like, yeah, these are good people. So
Right.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're
Welcome
all
back, Zach.
Thanks. My computer just decided that it needed to immediately shut off.
Yeah. Sounds about
so-
right.
Yeah.
Get a map.
Union hours.
Again. Well, we were just talking about ending eras, I guess. You know, we're not going to say which era Travis is ending, but you're obviously ending a decade and going into a new decade. Any thoughts about that? Any feelings?
He's ending the Jurassic era.
You know, it's one of those things like you're always supposed to be, oh man, I'm going to be so scared when it reaches that age. And every decade that I've come to has put me in a better place and more happy than I've ever been. So I kind of welcoming this one very, very, very with open arms, and can't wait to see what the next 10 years has to offer.
Cool. Good way to look at it. I'm kind of thinking, or like turning into the new year into like a new leaf, like almost like a new year, like you did with the resolutions. I'm trying to be a little more health conscious, think of my health and stuff like that, take some better steps and try to think of, you know, obviously, you know, once you pass 38, it's all downhill, right? So, you know,
I don't know. Is that what they say?
It's all downhill after 38.
I would just like to note that he's saying all this while he's drinking beer.
I know. I love it.
Oh, isn't it some country in Italy where they drink wine every day and they live to 150 or something like that?
Yeah, it's supposedly a big glass of wine a day is supposed to help you
I
out.
think that the universal health care helps a little bit. It's a weird thing that they never talk about when they talk about in those studies. Why do the French live so long? Universal health care.
What is that? What is this you talk of?
It's this thing where you get
Where do I
sick
get it?
and then you don't go bankrupt. You don't die in the streets. It's this weird thing that other countries, most of the rest of the world tries. And anyway,
In case you guys haven't noticed, Zach's been kind of amped up the last couple days. If you follow him on social media, you can see there's been a little bit of rise each day. So
I'm getting
Zach's a little,
He's coming out of
getting healthier. I've got my
He's coming out against everything.
he is wound up this
So
evening.
true. So true.
He's like,
Real quick, I'm just curious, what's everybody drinking tonight? I know Zach's not, I don't think is drinking anything at the moment, but
sparkling water.
David,
Water.
what do you
I'm trying Mike's hard black
Mexican
cherry
classic.
lemonade.
okay. Coca-Cola, but that's the real Coke. in
The
glass.
real deal. The real
Ooh,
deal.
hardcore.
And I am drinking a local. This is a Root Down Brewery here in Phoenixville, which is one of our clients and very good friends and
Oh, nice.
winners. They
gotta
just won a
plug in.
couple of
You gotta
awards at
plug
the. Great American Beer. There now. It's I'm not a big drinker, but I do like myself a good porter. So I saved this specifically just for tonight so I could drink it.
Nice.
Nice. Well,
So all right.
well, since we've been talking for the last 5 minutes, BP Miller is our guest this evening. BP, tell people who you are, for those who don't remember.
I'm BP Miller. I
All right,
own Coors-
moving on, and no, please.
And, thanks for being
owner
a
of Coors Photography with offices in Philadelphia and San Francisco, freelance operation. We do a little bit of everything, photojournalism and everything in between. Do a lot of mentoring and a lot of public speaking gigs. So it's nice to be back on the program. Thank you for having me, and especially on this day of all days, which is April Fool's Day. So yes, for those of you thinking I wasn't going to show up, here I am. So thanks for having me back.
Indeed, glad to have you on.
The
It couldn't
joke's
be a
on
better
you
day.
because this isn't even being taped or put out live.
Nice. That's fantastic. Great.
Right.
We're
not actually-
past my bedtime. I'm going to bed. Thank you.
Same number
Well,
of
I'm
people
so glad to have you on, BP, on the very last episode of Around the Lens. It's been a great run, and I'm glad you were able to close it off. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in to the last episode of
Not
Around
the
the
first time I've knocked something off of his ass, so I'm glad that I can keep the tradition alive.
Wait, you're not going to do the Bette Midler on the piano like Johnny Carson and give us a song away? I mean, really?
Are you asking
Really?
David or me? Because nobody needs to see that.
I'm the only person. I was about to say I'm the only person who understood that reference, being the youngest person in the room right now.
No, Travis is younger than
okay, I
you,
was just
right?
about to
Travis,
say.
aren't you 20s going into 30s?
That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah,
there.
you're the youngest person in the room.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Look, I spent enough time with you with the Northern Zach. You may not be the wind under anybody's wings, but you were definitely the wind in some form or fashion, especially down in the lobby. We don't need to go any further than that. All right. I think I got it all out now.
Indeed. All right. Anything new with you, Travis or Zach? Anything major happened in the last week? I know, Zach, you weren't on last week, right? You're not feeling too hot.
I did not have a voice.
No.
No
Now you have a
fun,
better
no fun.
voice. You have the voice of
The Alex Jones voice. Yeah.
No, it's
Frogs
been
are
a busy
making
week.
people gay.
Things are good. I'm playing with a new camera, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, the Fuji
and
medium
it's not,
format.
And it's not a Sony, and it's not a Sony. Go figure.
Oh my goodness.
It's
Well, if Sony
got
made a
beautiful
medium
picture
format,
to
I
it.
think you'd be required by law to have that, right?
Well, yeah, but at least they made the sensor, so it's still in the family.
So it's a Sony-made sensor, but Sony doesn't. You think Sony will come out with a medium format mirrorless someday?
Even if I could talk about it, I can't talk about it.
Oh wow.
I
Okay.
can't talk about it.
No comment
4K
then.
video from that would be very nice.
Well, according to some stories that came out today, apparently they're working on a medium format that shoots 8K and
Yes,
shoots 100
yes,
megapixel
yeah.
stills and
The A8.
yeah, yeah.
Mark V.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's what we're talking about first. Obviously, today is April Fools. If you've been using or paying attention to the internet at all over the last however many years, you know that the internet loves to play April Fools jokes. Google is doing some sort of game with Snake in the World. If you go to like Google search, there's this game. Although it's not really an April Fool's joke. They used to actually do really big April Fool's jokes with really.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything other than the snake joke, but I'm sure that somebody will write an article about all the April Fool's Day.
Did you see the Google tulip
No.
by any chance? So my wife shared this out earlier. It's like a 2-minute long video, and they're talking about how they figured out an AI of some kind for tulips to say what they need. And there's this whole video. It's hysterical, but it's just one of those situations where they've got all these, these scientists in a room.
Oh, that's great.
And then all of a sudden they're somewhere overseas, and like this entire field, they've got everything wired up, and they've got this entire field of tulips just talking. It was pretty good. It was solidly done.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it was definitely solidly done.
Well, Petapixel published their best April Fool's Day jokes that they could find from 2019. I'll just go through a couple of these. We've got the left-handed DSLR. We've got Shutterstock creating a library. I liked Jared Polin did a good video with a bunch of little April Fool's jokes in it. So I thought, it's quite a bit of production value he did for his show. Let's see here.
I think the SD card photo printer is probably the best that I saw out there. And anybody that's ever seen one of these little SD card holders that are out there, it's a little thing. It's about, it's really, I thought I had one sitting here. Yeah, here it is. It's exactly the size of an SD card, but mini SD slots, it has a little mini SD slot in it. And this thing is set up where it actually looks like it's printing stuff out. And I guarantee you, people lost their shit trying to figure out where they could buy this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's nothing gets people ramped up more than shit that doesn't exist.
But someday it will exist. No.
Sure, we're gonna go with that.
It's a good day to test the market. See what
Yes.
people actually really want.
You can get a little print about the size of your thumbnail. That'd
That's
be
right.
great.
And then put it on a tiny
Very
little
easy.
easel.
1-to-1 thumbnails.
Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the printers that go onto like the camera phones or the phones. I think that was the best thing. It's like in terms of miniaturizing printers. So this is just playing off that same need and desire by people to print out their cell phone shots or print out their photos from their cameras.
I think it's really interesting because every year there are always some kind of announcements of new tech that's coming out that's not an April Fool's joke. Remember when this was probably 3 or 4 years ago, they were coming out with 3D TVs. Or 3D monitors and stuff like that, and I think at one point there was going to be a 3D stills that came out. That was like the big thing. I think that was back in 2013. And there are people that jump on tech the moment that it's out. This didn't happen this time, which was good, but because I just knew we were going to get inundated with phone calls from clients. Do you have one of those 3D cameras? No. Oh, that we can't hire you. We're only looking for somebody with a 3D camera. No, nobody's got a 3D camera yet. They just announced it. And it just kind of went by the wayside. It was the same thing with Google Glass. Yeah. Remember when that came out and that was supposed to be the big thing and it was going to revolutionize our industry and it was going to revolutionize photography and everything else. And it went the way of Google. What just shut down? Google Plus? Was that their answer to Facebook or something like that just shut down? I mean, when was the last time you saw anybody wearing Google Glass? So it's interesting. Some of the stuff comes like you would think are April Fools, and they're not. but tech comes out so frequently anymore, and with the news cycle being 10-second snippets as opposed to 24 hours, people start to propagate this out on the social media, and it becomes insane.
Yeah. And some people like to play off that and be like, oh, look at this thing we released, and then people think it's a joke, and then it's not really a joke. I see this thing all the time where it's like the same thing every year, right? They take a fake ad for a new camera, and they just put exceedingly high specs, like for instance the A8S.
Yes,
and it's just let's do ludicrously high specs, and it's the same thing every year. If you look at 2016, 2017, it's be like, go back 5 years and be like, oh, 4K at 60 frames per second. No camera will be able to do that. So here we have the Alpha 8S. It's got ISO of 3,200,000, shoots 10K video, 12K in photo mode. Let's see, 20 stops and
97 megapixels,
6 frames per second. And
only 6 frames per second, though. That's disappointing.
Yeah, they should want me at 9.
If you oversell it, no one will believe it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure my Mark IV is only 6 frames per second at this point. I'm still waiting for him to get them a little higher.
Only $10,000. That's a steal.
Oh, that's it.
It's. I know we're eventually.
Well, it comes with an SD card printer.
Nice. See, you guys are already coming out with value adds. That's fantastic. I think one of the things, as much as we joke about this, some of the things that we have to kind of take into consideration is people do take a lot of this stuff seriously, and especially when it comes to April Fools. Here, I live in a small town outside of Philadelphia called Phoenixville, and a couple of years ago we had a mayoral race, and one of the people that was running was talking about drug sniffing bunnies, and that it was a real thing. And what he had picked up on was a April Fool's joke that the Amherst Police Department up in Massachusetts had sent out, and saying, welcome to our newest drug enforcement, officers. This is, Sniffles the bunny or whatever his name was, and he doubled down in a town hall during the mayoral race and said, no, I've talked to he had said that it was Lancaster, PA. And I've talked to the chief of police in Lancaster, and this is absolutely a thing. And he doubled down. It was on video. The news story went viral. I would read my news feeds from Europe in the morning, and there's Phoenixville front and center with this mayoral candidate doubling down about these drug sniffing bunnies. Needless to say, he lost. But it was just one of those situations.
Not needless to say.
Yeah.
Not needless to say.
You'd be shocked because on some of the local Facebook pages, people, the admins would literally take down any news article that was talking about this because they said it was fake news. And I'm like, just because you say it's fake news and that it's not, and when I'm reading about this in European news agencies, it's not fake news. It's actual news, and it's actually happening. People don't do their due diligence before they start sending this stuff out.
But it's not that crazy. They are using rats for, clearing minefields, so the rats will sniff out the mines and stuff. So, I mean, it's not the craziest thing. There is reality in some of the strangeness.
It is amazing, though, when these guys, because I'm trying to remember, there's something along the same stories that happened when I was working in Alaska covering politics, which which is its own world. But what amazes me, though, is when they double down, when either politicians or whoever, and be like, no. I talked to the Lancaster Police Department, and you're like, that can be fact checked in 10 seconds. Literally, you can call up the Lancaster sheriff or whatever, and just be like, did you talk to this dude?
Well, now if you can make it through make it through one news cycle, you're fine.
Exactly.
When have facts ever stopped anyone from saying anything?
In this day and age, they don't, and that's part of the problem. If he had, and I had said this even after the election, had he owned it and said, you know what, I didn't fact check it, it was my fault. And this is a guy that's done a lot for the town. Like, he's not a dumb individual, and I think he just kind of got caught up in this. But if you have the opportunity to make it right, how do you not do that? And especially once it becomes a viral news story that has literally circulated the globe about a small town, and you doubling down on drug sniffing bunnies. Like, you have to think about that a little bit, and people do that. I think they get so caught up in the fact that they could be wrong and they don't want to own it. But it gets a little nutty. I mean, to lose a mayoral election that bad when you were winning. I mean, he was firmly ahead in the polls until that happened.
Well, that's what becomes your Google search. I mean, and this is one of the deep problems I find with, I was joking around with a couple people talking about like how April 2nd should actually become April Fact Day, where it's literally devoted to you only post factual things. You cannot make jokes. There's no jokes allowed on Twitter. Like literally, this is it. This is when we just front page fact checking and everything like that, and how important that is, especially in 2019 for journalism. But what's amazing is that you have a dude like that, or you have whatever, is that these things. This isn't back in the 90s when somebody would they'd have the April issue. I don't even know if
they'd
they
have
did
to go
this
to
or
like
not.
GeoCities.
Well, it's just yeah. I mean, and websites went away, and that information just went away for forever. Or magazines and newspapers, they'd have a headline, and it would be a one-day thing, and then maybe some idiot remembers it from on and on or whatever. Or the stories about how it was a joke is what you remember. Like there's this famous thing in Alaska where a guy threw a bunch of tires into a open volcano in Alaska, and it obviously smoked the hell up, and everyone in the local area thought that the volcano was going to erupt. And that is that's a famous April Fool's Day thing and everyone knows that it was a joke, that the volcano didn't actually erupt. But one of the problems with a lot of this stuff is now you search on Google,
real trouble
whatever.
if it does erupt on April 1st.
Well, yeah, I know that's the problem.
Okay, it's not real. There's someone just throwing tires in. Don't worry about
fake
it.
lava. Fake lava.
It happens every year. Don't worry about it.
No, but the problem is that now that mayor's name is inherently never attached, and he did nothing to correct it. And I mean, like nowadays, we're like, if I say something wrong, especially as a journalist, and especially as somebody who's kind of obsessive about facts and things like that, and if I screw up on something, I go out of my way to make sure that there's ample evidence on the internet saying that I corrected myself, that I knew I was wrong, and that whether it be a photo I captioned wrong, or whether it be because we all make mistakes, and if you don't try to correct it, that's really, really freaking dangerous. So there.
That's right. I just Googled drug sniffing bunnies, and I got.
Yeah,
I'm sure Phoenixville was probably one of the first things to come up right after Amherst.
Actually, no. It took a few. It was a few down.
Okay. Well, it's been a couple years, and
now they're actually using them.
Yeah.
Gritro.
Yeah, I didn't want to say the guy's name because he's done a lot for the town, and he is a really good guy. But it just goes to show you that you double down on the wrong thing, or you get called out on something, and especially in this day and age, I'll never understand. Everything is being videotaped. Yeah. Everything, like no matter where you go. And it's so easy to find information. It's not like we have to go to the Encyclopedia Britannica anymore to try and find information, or the World Book, or some of the stuff that we had growing up. And I know, again, I'm dating myself, but like that was the Google back in the day, was when you hoped that your parents had the encyclopedia, or else you were going off to the library. But Dave is a solid guy that just made a bad mistake. But it goes to show you that it really doesn't take much for somebody to read something and go, oh, what's on Facebook? It must be true. And that's part of the problem. And look, Facebook is now finally doing an about face with some of their news stories and some of their journalism aspects and so on and so forth. But I think we're so far beyond that at this point. And I make a regular statement on Facebook always when I'll tell people, I'm like, guys, the NASA thing was a perfect example last week, where they tried to do like almost clickbait journalism more than anything else, saying, well, we were going to have two women go out, but we don't have her size. Well, there are no men's or women's sizes in spacesuits. It's a matter of configuration. But they didn't post it that way, and all of a sudden I see Facebook blowing up. I can't believe they did this, and women aren't. No, that's not what happened. They had a mission. If they were going to redo the spacesuit, that would have taken 6 to 8 hours. So what they did was they pushed it, and the astronauts that were on the ISS even said, we have other missions that we need to accomplish. We're not taking time out to redo this. We'll do it when we have a little bit of downtime, and we'll push this walk forward. But people lose their minds as soon as they read something without doing any due diligence, without doing any, like, I don't care if you go on Snopes. I don't care if you go to, if you're a Fox viewer or a CNN viewer or just your local news. Just do a little bit of research. Just because it's on Facebook doesn't necessarily mean that it's true.
What's sad is this person was brought down for bomb sniffing bunnies when other people are not brought down for cutting funding to 3 Mexican countries.
Yeah, that was my favorite. 3 Mexican countries. That's because there was I didn't realize there was more than one.
There's Mexico, there's New Mexico, and
right.
there's
I forgot about New Mexico.
Then there's Mexican Coke.
Yeah, right.
New formula.
Yes, which is the old Coke and just as good. So that's
or Northern Mexico, also known as Canada.
See, I like the really old Coke that came with cocaine. Personally.
Pharmaceutical. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about photography hoaxes here in a minute, but I did want to try something new, and I didn't want to save it till the end of the show. I wanted to try and do it in the middle of the show, just to kind of make sure we got to it before things went too long. So a little bit of viewer mail, so to speak.
Oh, nice.
And anyone can send us questions if they'd like to have it read on the show. If you've got something you want us to talk about, by all means, send me an email. My email address is on aroundthelens.com, or you can send an email to info@aroundthelens, or just post something onto our Facebook page or any of our social media. We'd be happy to look for that. But anyways, Dave Bottoms, who was one of our former guests, he had a question here, so I'll throw this out to the panel. See what you all think about it. A buddy of his is doing a shoot for the Evening Standard out of UK, and basically they do not want to deal with a contract or an official contract. Instead, the buddy's just going to create a list of details in an email and have them sign off on it. So they're not doing sort of the formal contract and PDFing it and signing it and all that back and forth. It's just basically an email. And
does he live over there, or is he stateside?
I'm guessing the buddy is living over there in the UK. And the question is, have you ever had any media outlets engage with you but not want to bother with a contract?
All of them.
Yeah.
in this day and age, all of them.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's become. I think they've gotten, and this is just my 2 cents, whether it's rooted in truth or not. You can look it up. I think that there are so many people out there that are trying desperately to find business and are willing to kind of bypass what used to be normal, as far as what they would accept and what they don't accept anymore. And the media outlets kind of know this, and they'll go after maybe not the best photographer, but somebody that will bend to their whims, as opposed to a more experienced photojournalist that will absolutely say no, like not doing it. I'll turn work down all the time, because for me, there is a way to do things and there's a way not to do things. And in this day and age, it's so easy to get caught up in but I need the exposure. You don't need the exposure that bad. If you're good, it may take a little bit more time. You will get to that point. But the moment that you start really putting yourself into a situation where you're not willing to get paid for your time and your talents, then let somebody else take it. Because there is enough work out there for everybody, and if one person's not willing to pay you, somebody else will. And it's just a matter of finding them.
Well, I don't think he's talking about getting paid or not getting paid. It's just the formality of creating a contract that you both kind of sign versus just having the terms in sort of an email. So it's like saying,
email, I don't know if they see that as it depends, I think, on what country you're in. But, I think sometimes emails are considered legally binding and sometimes they're not. I have it in my email like, this is, privileged information, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it means dick, but I still have it in there just in case. Even my lawyer has said at one point or another, you realize you can take that out of your email, like your signature line, because nobody reads it and it's not really legally binding depending on what state you're in. I think they kind of, in this particular case, Dave, I think they go hand in hand, because if they're willing to say, don't worry about the contracts, we'll just do everything through email, then it's a short step to go, we're not really going to pay you for what we said we were going to pay you for. This is what we feel it's worth. So they kind of do go hand in hand a little bit.
So he's setting himself up for some potentially, tricky situations, and where he could get taken advantage of if he doesn't, insist on a contract.
My 2 cents. I mean, Zach deals with papers way more often than, I don't deal with them on the daily basis like he does, but we deal with media outlets all the time, and it's come up. Think about it. How many times have one of you guys gotten a message over Instagram saying, hey, would love this shot, want to use your shot, just reply yes.
I would be nervous. My short take on it is I would be nervous about any publication that doesn't want to deal with a contract.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you always do. I have a bunch of clients that I've worked with in the past that I don't have like a strict contract with. It's a really bad idea. I'll 100% admit that. But like when just stuff is really like right now, we need to do this right now, and it's a smaller publication that doesn't have this setup. Like I work with like a lot of those type of publications. I don't work with, I don't contract with the Times or, big newspapers that often. It's usually smaller sites that don't deal with photojournalists a lot. I have my paragraph thing that I write out in an email about rights, and emphasize like one-time use or whatever the rights are that I'm selling it as or what they want and price-wise. But if a publication came to me, and I've never had this happen, said I don't think we really have to deal with a contract, I would immediately be, oh yeah we do now we do, because now my hackles are risen, and because most of the time it just ends up being like it's just easier for everyone involved, if you don't have to deal with, if we don't have a contract already written, or if there's not a template that they send and then we just punch in the numbers and that sort of thing. But yeah, Travis.
We're certainly in a day and age where I think where social media is changing up a little bit of it.
Yeah.
But in terms of contracts and media seems to be a little different than say the commercial world and stuff like that. I live in a little more, but everybody seems to be looking out for themselves. So everybody's going to try and throw their clause into the contract. So the first contract comes from the corporation where they're trying to say, oh, we get the rights for this long, and you're saying no, you don't get it for that long. You don't get a license for this long. And then the talent says, well, you can't use it with that, only in this, and you can use it for your social media or portfolio, but you can't use it to sell it. So everybody's going back and forth on this, and anyone that's legit is going to go through that, and everybody's protecting themselves. Otherwise, it's a nightmare afterwards.
There's no scenario where I would do commercial work without a contract.
Yeah.
News is always a little bit different, just because the possibilities for them to reuse it and do different things with a lot of breaking news photos just aren't there. I'm not advising you to not do a contract. Always do a contract when you can and everything. But like, it's just not in the way that it's a commercial shoot, where a commercial, thing where it's just like, oh, you're selling it to, publication, and then they're going to, make, some news organization really isn't going to make calendars out of your photo, your news photo, something like that. Like they're not going to reprint books usually. I mean, Time Life,
but also you're seasoned at this, and they're really kind of abusing Instagram and new people, because they'll contact them and say, oh, we just want to use your photograph, we'll give you credit, and you sign it away from us. They don't realize they're signing away. They're not getting paid a dime for it. They're going to put it up. They own the rights to it, and they're abusing people.
And that's a generational thing. That's part of the issue that we're finding right now within the industry is likes equal exposure. And they don't realize that money as you get older is more important than likes.
I would actually say it's definitely a generational thing, but it's literally a bookended thing. And was it Todd Bigelow's talk? I'm trying to remember whose talk it was. Discussing.
Bigelow was talking about it at Northern, so I know. I'm
just trying to remember whether it was because there was at least one other person that was talking about rights or something as well. That I was, but talking about how the older class of photographers, the retired people who are now out shooting, and a lot of these guys have top of the line glass and whatever, and they have nothing but time to become good, and they're giving away their stuff for free as well.
Yeah.
And I've seen this within activist world too. It's the bookends of like two groups of people. One person who just is trying to break into it and thinks that giving away their stuff is the entry, the entryway. I was one of those people probably early on. Thank goodness I got slapped around early enough that I didn't do too much. But then there's the older group of people who just don't need to. Their retirement, they have their pensions, they whatever. They just, this is their vacation. This is their retirement, and they don't care about any of this stuff either. And I mean, I make an active thing, which I try to get other photojournalists to do it, and writers and journalists or whatever. If you ever see one of those. And I feel bad going after them because they're just poor employees as well. The producers that pop in, hey, this is so and so from WJFK in St. Louis. Is it okay if we use your photo in perpetuity? on all platforms internationally forever.
Yeah.
And I go immediately, if I see that, like I stop whatever I'm doing and I go, don't do that. DM me if you would like. I can recommend rates at what you would pay for it. Otherwise, at least at minimum, charge them and do not agree to in perpetuity. Like I literally just have like an thing, and I've had a bunch of people who have DM me and been like, what should I charge? And I'm like, I just make a blanket number. I'm like, hey, it's it's a short term thing. Charge this much money, like across the board. They're gonna. Whatever they're either gonna use it or they're gonna not. But realize what you're doing. If you care about, of course, I work in the lefty world a lot, so it's like if you care about class solidarity at all,
but
you
know what?
about any of this stuff.
Some of the issue also comes down to
we
all at one point in our careers or another are like, oh yeah, you can have it, you can do it, blah blah. And I still do that with some of my clients, but these are clients that we've had for years and years and years, and that. If you're losing out on sometimes you have to make a goal line stance and say, this is what it's worth. This is what I'm doing. This is the amount. And there are other times when I know that I've gotten enough, that I get enough business from that client and they've referred me enough business where I'm like, you know what, just use it. It's fine because I know I'm going to make it somewhere else. And it's good points for the client. But you also have to get to a point in your career when you can be comfortable with standing by your ground. We have it with one of our clients where they wanted ownership of the images. And I said, if you want the ownership, this is what it costs. Yeah. Oh, we don't have that. Well, then I retain ownership. Well, that's not fair. Well, that's the law. That's that's when I throw in, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. I'm like, guys, I'm not trying to be a dick about it. This is law. Yeah. If you want I'm happy to sell you. And I've got one client that flies us all over the country every year for this big thing that they have. And they buy the images outright. And it's a little bit of a money grab, but I don't go above and beyond. I charge whatever industry standard looks like, but I'd be stupid not to. At the same time,
go ahead.
Sorry,
go finish up.
It's just one of those situations where sometimes you have to make a decision based on your relationship with the client. Also, I don't always necessarily agree with having to do things according to Hoyle across the board because it doesn't always work like that. It varies on the town that you live in. It varies on the state. It varies on the country. Absolutely. It varies on the client. When we do a lot of work with nonprofit photographers, and the first thing that I do is I go on a GuideStar and I look at their numbers and I look to see how much they spend in marketing and how much they spent on this last year. And then we come up with a design for them based on, hey, there's a
based on cats. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But it's just one of those situations where sometimes you have to look at the situation and go, okay, I'm not necessarily going to give it away for free, but how well do you know them? Have you worked with them in the past? Do they have any type of a budget for it? People will come back to you and hire you more and more if they see that you're easy to work with as opposed to a brick wall.
But we've gotten into, and especially when you're talking about a day and age where more people have cameras than ever before, more people want to shoot than ever before, and we've gotten devaluized in an insane, journalism's not getting paid. There's not as much commercial clients out there. People are taking in-house and doing stuff in-house now. So you have these people that want to break into it, and a lot of people that used to work in it and get paid that now are not getting paid. So you have a lot of scared photographers out there that aren't getting their value, and nobody's uniting and unionizing to say, all right, we can't devaluize our thing, and we have to stand up and not get paid because what the next photographer is going to take. So it's a scary moment for a lot of people. And yes, I think some of us are in the position, we've kind of built our reputations, and they're not going to take advantage of you as a journalism because you've been there and I've been there, and we've built our value, which is if you don't do that as your a photographer, build your value. I have a certain amount of social cachet, that people will see my work, so they go, oh well, he's worth it because they'll get in front of eyes. A lot of people don't have that, and they don't know where to start, and they don't know where to get paid, and they're not going to get paid. So we're in a really weird and kind of a tough situation for a lot of photographers out there right now.
Yeah. We'll talk about photography and specifically affordable photography here a little bit later on in the program. But to put a cap on this question and kind of give the response, I think everybody's kind of pushing towards Dave Bottoms. I would tell your friend to push for a contract. I mean, he's already putting together an email with the details. Well, okay, put those details into a PDF with a little signature block thing, and then somebody will sign it and then send it back to you. It's the exact same details you'd put in the email. Just make someone who is associated with the company, who can legally sign for something on behalf of the company, sign that document and give it back to you. So it's the same information you're going to put in that email, just put into a Word document with your letterhead and everything, make it look official, make it a contract. If they're afraid to do that, then maybe that's not the client you want to work for.
Yeah.
Again, absolutely. It depends on your relationship with the client, like they're saying, but I don't know. If it's your first time working with them, you got to set the ground rules. Otherwise, they're just going to, push this way, and then you're going to find your stuff on billboards and sides of buses, and you'll be like, wait a second, I didn't agree to that. Well, you didn't say I couldn't do it in the email, so anyway.
There's a lot of people out there who will play the whole just do it and then say sorry afterwards. Don't play that game. Set expectations up front and know, if you lose a client just because you're being honest up front, that's probably not the client you want if they're going to, lose you because you weren't honest up front.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All
right, well, let's talk about some April Fool's Day photo hoaxes. So
are we talking about actual hoaxes or more like kind of manipulation, trying to get one over on everybody and not necessarily being in April?
Well, I mean, again, the source that I found listed as April Fool's Day photo hoaxes, and these are from from the 20s and beyond. But it's essentially using the art, visual journalism, art, photography, whatever, to lie to, a viewership, right. Specifically, primarily on April Fool's Day, but in general, if there's photo hoaxes that have existed outside of April Fool's Day, but yes, any sort of photos that were created to trick people. And the source that I'll link to in the show notes here is from this website, hoaxes.org, Museum of Hoaxes. And this has a lot of great historical imagery. I'll bring it up here so you can see it if you're a viewer. I'll bring it up here on the viewer here, and you can just see there's stuff from again, going all the way back to 1926, where the creator had created a triple-decker bus. Babe Ruth turns jockey. So, again, putting, these what we consider basic sort of photo manipulation done as jokes back in the day. Again, these were published on or around April Fool's Day. Here's Graf Zeppelin in San Antonio. So again, this is from 1931. So it just goes to show that, playing around with people, doing April Fool's Day jokes, using photography for April Fool's Day jokes has been going on a long time. You had brought up some other examples. Want to talk about the one BP? You had brought up an example, I think. Was that the shark yours, or what was the example you had brought up?
The shark, I mean, look, the problem, it kind of goes back to people just posting shit on Facebook, which is, if it looks not quite realistic, chances are it's not. And I think that's part of the problem is people see this and are like, holy crap, look at this, I've got to share this out. And some of them are so ridiculously photoshopped, and they're so easily, to be able to tell. I mean, the shark, obviously, there's so many shark ones. After every, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a photojournalist on the East Coast named Chris Post, but Chris has worked in first response mode for major events. I think it's like Response Team 1 or something here in Pennsylvania. And he goes all over the place. And, inevitably after every major hurricane, you see the sharks or the crocodiles or the alligators that have just come out of nowhere. I think Katie Couric got taken a couple of years ago. I think it was after Harvey or something like that, where her friend posted a picture of this alligator and said, oh, this alligator rolled up in front of my neighbors. And it was something that a cop took like 8 months earlier, like somewhere in Florida. The problem is that sometimes they're not fake. They're just not in context compared to what people were putting up. It has nothing to do with it. It wasn't taken in conjunction with that. Inevitably, after you hear anything about a tsunami, the first thing you start seeing are these pictures from these still shots from Day After Tomorrow with this big, like 85,000 foot wave coming in and about to hit New York. It's not true. They never get that big. I mean, tsunamis are giant, are massive walls of water, but they're not, 80 feet high or they're not 120 feet high, but there's so much water behind it. That's what makes them dangerous, not the height. And people don't realize that because they've seen it in movies or they've seen it here and there, and they're like, "Oh, well, I've seen this before. It must be true." And it's the Facebook, it's always comes back down to the same thing. So, just take a brief second, take a breath, and if you don't believe in Snopes, then just look online a little bit because it's one of those situations where, just think a little bit. Before social media, if you had seen that, you would have thought it was fake. Just because it's online doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents with the sharks and the alligators.
And that's the sad thing nowadays is nobody, clickbait was bad enough with titles and people were like, "Oh my God, did you hear it?" No, you didn't read the article. That's not what it said. But now it's like total fake stuff, and nobody wants to do the due diligence of actually just fact checking, which takes 2 seconds. They just if it's in their realm of tribalism and they like, "Oh, that makes sense," they'll just spread it without even reading it and checking it out. And that's what's so terrible nowadays. People just instantly want to believe things if it fits into their tribalism.
Well, it's like the Abraham Lincoln meme. You ever see that? Where he's saying something about the internet that goes around. I'm like, guys, come on. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna look this one up. Let's see here. I don't see. I'll bring this. I'm looking at Google search. Drop beats, not bombs. Abe Lincoln. Is that?
That's one.
Are always reliable.
Yeah,
that's just words of wisdom right there.
Yeah, little informational nuggets. There's so many of them. I mean, you can take and sometimes I'll even look at something and go, "Wow, did they really say that?" And I'll just do a quick search, but at least I'll go and look. If it's something like Abraham Lincoln talking about the internet, we know that's. Yeah. I'd like to think everybody would know that.
I believe Abraham Lincoln said, "Not everything you read on the internet is true."
Yeah, that was the one I was thinking of. That's exactly.
I love that at this point I have so many quotes from Lincoln and Mark Twain and Churchill and things like that I've already previously fact checked that I can now just go, "No, that's not a thing that happened. That's not something." And then people go, "Well, how do you know?" And I'm like, I 4 years ago when I saw this on the internet the first time, when it had a lot that GIF or that meme had a lot more pixels in it. Back 30 times it was uploaded and downloaded to your grandfather's phone. I had already fact checked it because it's really kind of easy to do.
It's also worth checking into because sometimes I took whenever I'm out in San Francisco, I normally stay at a hotel right by the airport, and it's got a gorgeous view of I think it's 28 left and 28 right. So you're coming in over. It's not the marina, but it's coming in over water, and you'll see one plane that's taxiing to take off and another one that's coming in, and it looks like they're about to go head to head. And there are a couple shots that I've taken where they look like they're two United flights, look like they're nose to nose. They're not. It's just a trick of the lens. Yeah. But it wasn't manipulated. It was carefully timed out. And, sometimes I'll spray and pray in the hopes that I get it exactly right where I want it because my eyes don't always work the way I need them to.
I'm trying to remember when we were having this discussion. Maybe it might have been at Northern Short Course or it might have been just with some other colleagues. But I've actually found myself being more careful about with what photos from news stories, especially, only news stories that I upload, that they could be used out of context. That when I upload them as part of a photo essay and I go, "Oh, well, that photo is going to be used without the context of the other 5 images." And because I know how the internet works, I know for a fact that if I upload this photo of this Antifa punching somebody or something, whatever it is, I'm not going to upload that photo now because I know it's going to be used out of context, and immediately it will be taken out of context.
So that's a fair question.
So it's interesting, which is
after Charlottesville,
yeah,
and all the images that you took during Charlottesville that made all the wires that went national. Did you ever see one of your images into a meme after that? Because you took some fairly iconic images down at that. You didn't realize when you were taking them that they would turn out the way they did, but. Did you see a meme 4 or 5 months down the line where you're like, wait a second?
Well, my photos are used as part of they attempt to try to cast DeAndre Harris in a light that is not true. Because if I talk about DeAndre Harris, the 20-year-old black kid who was being assaulted by 6 white supremacists in the parking garage Probably have seen the photo if you follow this.
Yep.
But there is a ongoing attempt by white nationalists and white supremacists to use a video that is edited and out of context to portray him as attacking a 60-year-old man. And I every time I've stopped arguing. I just go, nope, that is not true. I was there. That's not what happened. And that's all I say at this point. But my photos and other photos beforehand, because I had taken photos of him earlier in the march, are used as part of this. Oh, look at, he was carrying a club, and that's what he used to attack this 60-year-old man. I mean, never mind the fact that the guy that he got into a fight with was a white nationalist who had attacked one of his friends with a flagpole and was trying to pierce the guy in the stomach. Never mind all of that. But it's all used part of that. And I left my last wire service because they were selling my photos to a white nationalist news site in big quotes, called American Renaissance. And I got into a big, one-sided argument because they literally just never responded to me about it. I was just like, this is screwing. If people see my photos being used in that way, they're going to, my safety becomes questionable on both sides now. Like, I already get crap from white supremacists. I'm fine with that. But like, people who are fighting white supremacists, if I'm literally in the middle and like going, oh, that guy's working for a white supremacist website,
so how do you feel about self-editing yourself and just because someone might? I mean, they could take any picture of yours and do it now.
I mean, on the same side, I should add, is I have a ton of photos, and I think anybody who's photographed President Trump has 10,000 photos of him looking like a complete idiot. Like goofy faces and things like that are out of normal context. I had the same thing with Bernie Sanders. And I've actually talked with somebody who worked with the Bernie Sanders campaign, and I made a joke. He was like, you shoot in burst mode. It's like, brrr, and so you get every fluctuation of someone's voice. And some people talk really, Hillary Clinton doesn't, Hillary Clinton actually has some bad looks, but like certain candidates they just have a normal, no matter what the frame, maybe it's just not the frame used sort of thing, but it's like not something that would be turned into a meme. I've done a ton of stuff. I actually, as I'm making this on April Fool's, I actually uploaded a photo that I did of Donald Trump, making him look bad. So this is hypocritical that I'm talking about this right now. But I have not uploaded any of those photos to my wire service.
Yeah, but it was my photo, so it's okay.
But it actually because I was playing. The fun thing is I was playing with the refraction of at the DNC or at the RNC, the Republican National Convention. There's a low-level, mid-level glass that would go through, and if I shot halfway through it, it extended his face.
Oh, jeez.
And it's freaky and weird. And he was already like full Donald Trump, like when he's like got his tongue sticking out and he's like from a profile image. But like, there's a lot of photos from really early on, from like the NRA convention back in 2015. I have these close-up photos shooting with a 200 millimeters, like right up in his face. And I just was like, I made that decision right then and there that for all the candidates, I'm just like, I can't upload these photos because
but at least
I don't
you
want
do
my
that.
name.
A lot of people don't.
I've had this discussion with a lot of people, and it's just like there's some that are like, if it's way out of blown and not like him, then I won't do it. If it is Donald Trump, I mean, this is one of the things I've curtailed, because now that I've watched Donald Trump speak in person so many times, I go, oh, that's how he talks. That's him.
That's his default. So
it's just literally, he has, like the chins and the whole thing, and just his look, and he doesn't care, because I've seen him literally use the photos in his own publications and memes and things like that. So I'm like, well, why am I censoring myself in that way? And I do that, and I used to do, and I do that for, I do that with all, well, whether it be Bernie, whether it be Hillary, whether it be whatever. I don't like to upload those usually, in general. Just because, again, it's just like, I don't want my name, being attached to a photo that turns into a meme,
like that's used,
used by,
a pimple, but not a scar.
I mean, like, I've, God forbid, I've like the amount of color correction I've done trying to work with Donald Trump to make him look like he does. in person is unbelievable because
But
some
doesn't it
days
throw
he's
you
more
off with that orange. Yeah,
Well,
must really throw
the
you
big
off.
problem is
Well,
that,
you can
like,
see where the cutoffs are. I mean, you can absolutely see
Yeah,
where the makeup
there's
cutoffs
actual.
I'm
Yeah,
not going to hide that stuff. But I go to, if that's how he looked at that time, I have
That's
a
how
memory.
it's gonna
That's
look.
how
Yeah,
I
yeah.
edit. That's how I edit.
Oh, absolutely.
And but your camera, when it comes down to, like, he speaks in these weird, like, half of a out at dusk. I mean, this is a nightmare of lighting at dusk in an airplane hangar. So half of the audience is lit by airplane hangar lights. Half of Trump and the airplane behind him is lit partially by dusk lighting. So it has its own lighting. And then he's lit with a whole different lighting rig that's not just ambient
nothing like
lighting
mixed
sort of
lighting.
thing. And it's just like, I've done more editing on those photos than I've done on anything.
That's enough to make your head explode. It really
Yeah,
is.
and then he was orange because he was in the height of orange at that in that one time.
And there was his personal tanning bed to the right.
Well, yeah, I mean, the spraying
And the spray tan to the guy to the left.
There's something to be said, and not to go too far off on this, but there is absolutely something to be said. I was just having this conversation with a couple of our photographers at a job last weekend or 2 weekends ago. There was 5 different light sources with 5 different kelvins coming down. Wow. How the hell do you white balance for that? You can't. Yeah. Like, there's no you can't. There's not
easy.
enough gel.
You go black and white.
Yes, yes. Well, hey, look.
Except one of them's using a different cycle, so then you have like a line going through you.
White balance for the main subject. That's what I say.
I actually really want to have a conversation with, because I've had a lot of informal conversations about this with the guys that follow him and daily, the guys that continually photograph Trump and photograph the candidates and have had informal ones, but I've never had a full on just like, what are your ethics of, which is something we should probably try to organize. Like, what are your ethics for photographing the president?
You know who would be good for that is Jabin, because Jabin Botsford. I mean, he's been with Trump since, I think he was covering him during the campaign, and he's been with him ever since. That would be a perfect person to have.
He's actually sitting next to me when I was photographing Trump with the photos I uploaded. So
nice. Yeah. All right, well, let's go to our last topic this evening. We're talking about competition in the industry, and there was an interesting article that would pose the same sort of question, basically saying, is affordable photography devaluing your work? And I think, when I saw it, I was like, well, yeah, of course it is. But the author makes an interesting argument. I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but basically saying that no matter what you're charging for your work, the quality of your work will shine through, and it will basically represent you better than the price tag you put on it, so to speak. Eventually saying, like, someone who gets poor quality imagery from a lower cost photographer is going to then be burned by that and come to someone who is, essentially set the price that you feel you are worth, and don't worry about what other people are setting their prices at. Don't try and price bargain, try and lowball the competition, so to speak, and then people will come to you. I guess that's kind of the sort of argument there is.
I don't know if you have to lowball. One of the I sent you guys in the show notes earlier a couple spots. We actually have a new campaign that's starting here in Philadelphia, a radio campaign. And the spot, I don't know if you can actually play it or not, but the one spot that is for a station here in Philadelphia, which is WMMR. It's I forget which. I don't know if that's the top one or the second one. But we go through this checklist of not everybody that has a camera is a photographer, and a professional camera doesn't make a photographer. A photographer makes the pictures. And I think that's something that people are actually slowly starting to come around to. They're starting to realize that there is worth in hiring a professional photographer as opposed to an Uncle Bob that went and got a camera at Costco or BJ's or wherever and is letting the camera do all the work. We've been in the digital age long enough now that I think people are starting to realize that, and people are starting to see that there is an absolute value when you bring whatever it is that you're bringing to the table. When we were when Zach and I were at the Northern Shore course in photojournalism about a month ago, we both were doing portfolio reviews. And the one thing that I would say over and over and over, and I do it here in Philly too when I sit with students, is you have to sell the sizzle and not the steak. And by that, I mean that everybody out there is selling steak. Like every photojournalist, every photographer, whether they're commercial or what have you, they're all selling steaks. So what's the difference between yours and theirs? It's not the photography, it's the person. And that's what people don't realize is that, and that's something that a lot of photographers are really bad at. They do not know how to sell themselves. And I guarantee you, to anybody that's listening either live or if they're listening to this down the line, if you have enough faith in your product and you have enough faith in yourself, people will hire you every time, because there's a difference between hiring a really good photographer who's an asshole and hiring a photographer that's good and easier to work with, because people want easier now. They don't want necessarily the high end, and there's nothing wrong with doing high end, but not everybody has the budget for it.
Yeah.
But if you sell yourself and you're capable of selling yourself, that will get you so much more business down the line than anything else that you can do. I don't care what kind of photography you do. I mean, that's business 101.
No, there's no doubt about it. You have to know your markets. You have to know your value and your skill level and what you can. You don't say, "Oh, I can deliver this," and under. You have to be able to deliver it and consistently. And as it's like if you're going to take a translator on a foreign trip to whether it be Mexico or France, you're not going to take your Uncle Bob who just took 3 years of Spanish in high school. You're going to hire someone that actually can do it. And the main thing is and what you're talking about is, I think one of the reasons I get repeat clients and new clients is because I will leave a shoot. They haven't seen one picture yet, and they go, "Oh my God, you are fabulous! You were the best person to work with. I can't believe." They haven't seen one picture yet. I could deliver nothing, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, what happened?" But
that's the best compliment in the world.
It is. They haven't seen one thing, and they think it's the best thing they've ever done in their life. And it's like you have to know what you can charge, and it's like the reason I can charge what I charge is because everybody's giving me word of mouth. Everybody's talking about it. I consistently deliver, and it takes the years of experience. If you're a first-year photographer, you can't charge a lot because you just don't have the experience to walk in and go, "All right, there's a light there that's orange. There's an out light there that's blue. I know that this is going to be a problem." It's like you can anticipate moments. You can understand the language of lenses. You understand the compression of a zoom lens, and you know how to speak the language of photography.
But there's a flip side to that, Travis.
Yeah.
There's a huge flip side to this, and I deal with this with some of the younger photographers that we've hired on.
Right.
Is that they come in so low that when they do start to really get business, they have to bring their pricing back up to at least close to what industry standard is. If you're we all will play the game of a little higher, a little lower, but we're all generally within the same bubble. If you go from charging a low amount to up here, you're going to lose people as opposed to coming in at least being somewhere in the circle of industry standard. And that's the difference.
Yes and no. I agree with you. You can't just go from 100 to, 100 an hour to 5,000 an hour. You just can't do that. But if you're, if you have a client that says, "Oh, I can only, charge, $100 an hour," and you charge 500, then that's not probably your client.
Right.
It's like, it's not the one you're going to be marketing to. It's not the one that you're going to be constantly going back to because they can't pay your rate. It's like, I can do one of you or 4 of you. It's like, which one are you going to spend the time doing?
Yeah, I was at a Photo Plus Expo a while back, and there was a photographer who was giving a speech and was saying how, he set his rate at a certain rate and did that rate for a while, and then somebody said, "You should quadruple your rate." And he was like, no, they'll never pay me that much. And so but he decided to quadruple his rate, and they were like, "Oh, they paid him." And then a little bit later on down the road, he's like, quadruple his rate again, and people paid that rate. So it's amazing how much we undervalue our own work and just take for granted what we're providing as a service to people.
We get very scared as freelancers to say no because as a freelancer and someone that's not under a contract,
scary not to work.
It's frightening to think that every job is potentially your last job. I mean, it's.
But there's enough work out there for everybody, and that's the difference, and I think a lot of people lose sight of that. So you do obviously a lot more commercial. We do a little bit of everything. We work with a lot of nonprofits, but we also do a lot of event photography and photojournalism and everything in between.
Right.
Yeah.
There's enough work out there. It's just depending on whether or not it's the work you want to do.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that's where the difference, like if you want to work in this industry, you can't say no to anything. Like, look, I don't enjoy doing weddings or bar mitzvahs, but at the same time, it allows us to bring in income that we wouldn't have otherwise to allow us to do other projects, whether they're passion projects or moving forward with a different aspect or so on and so forth. It's not like I go in and do a half-ass job during a mitzvah or a wedding or anything like that.
No,
I never go in and go, "Oh, I'm just going to half-ass it tonight." But at the same time, Would I much rather be out on the road covering, either a campaign stop or, breaking news that's in Philly? Of course. Yeah. It speaks to my inner photographer way more. Yeah. But at the same time, you can't say no because it allows you to do those other things that further your career.
Totally agree. And I shoot everything. I shoot from weddings to events to commercial stuff to a lot of social media branding. And the stuff that I didn't want to shoot has usually led me into stuff that was even better, or stuff that I never even expected. Whether it be meeting a client or a word of mouth or something that, and being diverse enough. And I know everyone, you need to specialize. You need to just show this in your portfolio. You know what? Everyone goes, why are you always so busy? Because I shoot everything. Because suddenly when this season's over, the PR companies are contacting me to hire this. It's like there's always something coming, another revenue stream from another type of shooting that I do that's coming in. So every week I have someone calling me. It's not like suddenly I only shoot weddings and wedding season's over and nobody's calling me. It's like, no, I shoot this, I shoot that. I constantly have different revenue streams.
You're probably like us. You're probably already working on Q4 stuff for some of your clients because that's coming down the line before you know it. Like it's insane.
Exactly.
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Going back to the hoax stuff though, and talking about like different contests and so on and so forth. We were talking about it right before we went on the air about names escaping me. Let me grab it really quick. Marcio Cabral won I think it was the second place for the wildlife photographer of the year. It turns out it was a stuffed anteater. I mean, come on.
You almost have to give him credit. You almost have to give him credit for that.
You have to give him credit that he got as far as he did with it. But then you got to look at the editors that are looking at this going, that's fantastic that they weren't even able to tell.
It's genuinely amazing whenever one of these things come out, is that the lack of vetting and clearance and any sort of proof for behind the scenes stuff that any of these, like the winners, I understand the first upload, like whatever, it gets through the whole thing. But like when it's about to be announced to be first, second place, no one asks me like, hey, what are your other photos from this? Like, I just want to see some sort of, everybody has I need to see your contact sheet. Like obviously digital contact sheet or whatever, but what's your behind the scenes shot of trying to get this done? Let me see the 17 photos that you took to try to not get it. It amazes me that they don't at this point. I mean, maybe they're doing it now. I know World Press has gone through a whole vetting of everything for a lot of their things, supposedly.
Well,
at
after
least.
the whole Hussein Fatimi, I mean, they didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to go back and look at something because they got tagged a couple times.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem is that the one that is that they've now come up with other problems that at least I see. The Venezuelan photograph, I believe it won world and on fire. The past year. So the context of that is that he set himself on fire. Mm-hmm. Is that he had a Molotov cocktail or something like that, and it broke or whatever, and it came on fire. And I forget whether the caption info is correct, is dead on or not. But like the immediacy of the image and what it is meant to have portrayed is not what we have garnered from it. It's not what the truth is of the image. And it's a fantastic photo, and I don't think that I'm trying to remember what the caption info on it was, but it's but it doesn't talk to the moment. And so it's this weird thing where there's a ton of good photos that didn't get first place on World Press, and that year, this is 2017, I think I'm talking about, and so it's one of those things where I've seen that more and more, where images that are kind of out of context from the story, there are these spectacular images that don't photojournalistically mean a damn thing, other than they're a spectacular image. Right. That are kind of making it through. And that's something that bothers me about, just going to the context world. That's a whole different kind of thing. But like, that's something that really bothers me more, not more than the fake photos, obviously, but in a very different way, because it's not really easy, but it's really easy to win awards and have that one fantastic image that's completely taken out of context of whatever the thing is, as opposed to a really solid, amazing piece of photojournalism that actually speaks to the thing that you were covering, and you could actually use as an illustration or as a piece of journalism to go along with print journalism, which is kind of what I thought we were all supposed to be doing when it came to photojournalism.
You know what shifted a little bit, and this absolutely has everything to do with it, is, and especially if I'm out on assignment and people see the lens, man, they look right towards it.
Yeah.
Photography has become so commonplace anymore. Like there was, like even when we were growing up, now, you know, I'm a Gen X kid, so I grew up in the age where AE1s were starting to phase out and disc cameras were becoming a thing, and you know, so on and so forth. So, you know, even back then, like, yeah, photography was for everybody, but not to the level that it is now. And when we do bar and bat mitzvah photographies, we do a 30-minute meet and greet with the kids. I'll do a 30-minute shoot with the kids because there's a huge difference between this and having a 70-200 in your face and knowing how to react. Yeah. Everybody and their mother anymore, because photography is just everywhere and everyone is taking a picture, everybody's taking a video. Whenever they see a professional, they look right at you. Yeah. It's, you know, it's like they're almost trained to it. So it becomes very difficult to get genuine, you know, unless you're in a situation like you're in Charlottesville, or unless you're at a situation, you know, in, you know, a KKK rally in Ohio or whatever the hell's going up in New York, or even here in Pennsylvania. I mean, we are a hotbed, especially in the area that I live, of white supremacists. You know, you can get those shots, but when you're trying to do day to day, if you're looking for a feature, if you're looking for stuff, people see you and they look at you, and it's near impossible to get a halfway decent, true to life photojournalism shot because everybody wants to look at you. Everybody wants to mug for the camera.
I've actually changed, and this is partially due to like the restriction, the difficultness of shooting, of photographing. That's another thing I'm trying to change, is using the word photograph as opposed to shoot. But that's a whole different story.
Oh, wait. I had to do that at the DNC. I had to go down. I was working with the senator during the DNC here in Philly, and I kept saying to myself on the ride down, "You're here to work. You're here to photograph the senator. You're not here to shoot the senator."
Do not say shoot the president.
No, there's who's it?
I'm just gonna aim at the senator, get him in my sights, and shoot him. That's all I'm gonna do. Okay, just relax.
Don't
photograph him.
But thanks to the fact that, like, so anti-fascists, for very good reasons, don't like their photos being taken because they don't want to get doxxed and then be murdered by white supremacists. And white supremacists don't really like their photos being taken because they're going to get doxxed by anti-fascists and lose their jobs and whatever. So I've come now to basically, I walk into a event and I'm photographing several hundred people, all who do not want their photos taken. And so what I shoot more and more now is I've changed. It's a mix of street photography now, where I'm shooting a lot with my 35-1.4, where it's just wide and it's like click, click, click off to the side, and with my telephoto. Because I do that with protest. I do that with everything now, because I can finally get those natural images. What I'll do as well is I'll use people's, they're already taking a photo, and then I'll use that if I want a posed photo. I'll like take a photo and shoot over their shoulder or whatever, or get the camera phone in their thing. And so it's interesting because that idea, the fact that everybody is now used to being around cameras and looking at our gear and paying attention to us in a different way. I think they've always paid attention to us in some way, shape, and form, but in a way that makes our job a lot more difficult, to get the natural photojournalistic photo. And so I shoot, I would say, half of my work now with telephoto, which is not something I ever thought I would be doing. Is, you know, what's the rule? Who is it? Just like, you have to zoom with your feet, or if you're not close enough, whatever. All of those
safety aspect of it.
I believe that was Abraham Lincoln who said that.
yeah, that's what it was.
I think he said zoom with your feet. And get security outside your box seat at the theater. That's what he's.
No, but
70-200 is my go-to. Like my 70-200 is I probably have that on more than I have any of my other lenses. Although I will say, and I think I have it. Yeah, here. A friend of mine just gifted me with this 1977 Zenit, which is a Russian. But they've got it came, I mean, and this thing is pristine. It's a Helios. It's the 44-258. So it's a f2 58. It was a knockoff of the Zeiss, I think the 55 that they had come out with. I went on and I've bought an adapter for my Canon so I can use that lens, because I really want to try using that next time. I want to try and get out of my comfort zone a little bit and not always use the 70 to 200. But
you know, for my Sony.
But I saw Sony's got all kinds of adapters for it.
And I think that. And if you like, this goes to like kind of the earlier point when we're talking about why, like, one of the things I think we have to figure out as a community, not just photojournalists but also commercial or whatever, is that the difference between us who have been doing this for several years and in pay rates and things like that is that I know that I can finish a shoot if everything goes wrong. If both of my cameras fail. And I've had this happen before. Both of my cameras, the LCDs and them went out. Everything, luckily, was still taking frames. So I went back to my film days, and I knew how to go make sure if it was an f2, and and look at the lighting and go use my brain as a light meter and go through and do the shot. And I got some of my best work I've ever done, which is.
Dude, trouble. I got an A1 in my bag that's fully loaded at any time.
So it's just like
because you never know.
But I also know that I can shoot. I hope to God I never have to do it, but I know that I can shoot a wedding with this.
I've seen you take photos with that. You're not that great.
Oh no, this is terrible. I don't try to, but I'm saying I know I can. Like, I know I can get in there and I can do the shots because I know how to not only just how to use these devices, but if everything goes wrong and I have to borrow, Uncle Bob's, D5200 or whatever, I know that I can do that, and that's why you pay me.
There are photographers.
You're borrowing Uncle Bob's camera, though. I don't know how much I'm paying you, but
our partner out in San Francisco, Scott Strazzani, is brilliant with his iPhone. Like he can do
great stuff with the phone.
Yeah, I mean, strictly with his iPhone. I've watched him in person do it. It's ridiculous. I can't. I couldn't do it if I tried, and I've tried many times. I can't.
As we know, it's not about the photographer; it's about the gear you use.
Yes, we all know it's
nothing to do with it.
That's always my favorite. Oh, my mom's got that camera.
Yeah, a friend of mine sold all his Panasonic gear and just uses his phone. He's just what's the point?
I can't do it, but I mean, I hate using my phone, even just for family stuff. I'd much rather have mine, but some people are way more comfortable with it.
Yeah. All right, well, we're getting towards the end of our show. I'm going to try and play this audio clip here that you gave us for chorus spot. I do not know.
No, it's just the one we were talking about it. But
no, don't play it? Okay, well, it'll be in the show notes.
So
you can listen to it after the fact.
I appreciate
it. If you're okay with that.
Yeah, when we were talking about freelancing gigs and stuff like that, but I don't want to take more time for that.
All right, no worries.
Do we have a lightning round of some kind? Can we make fun of Zach for a minute, or?
I mean, haven't we been making fun of Zach this entire time? I just.
I figured every time my computer decided it needed to restart for some reason, you guys were just mocking me mercilessly.
Yeah, man.
I have one last thing that I just want to say real quick in regards to
please.
Mocking Zach.
Yeah, mocking Zach. People get so caught up in the idea of I need to win this. I need to get noticed. I need to do this and that and the other thing. And I've been going through. Zach and I were actually talking about this when we were together at the Northern. I've been not happy with my work at all for like 6 months. And it's a personal thing. And we all go through it. We've all been there. And I've really been trying to kind of take stock and being like, all right, well, what don't I like about my work? Why am I not happy with it right now? What could I be doing differently? And I tried starting to do like a photo a day kind of thing, and I hated that just because it's not me, and I felt forced. But one of the things that I kind of came around to is just kind of like I'm always competing with myself. And I'll look at other people's work, and I see Zach's work, and I've seen Travis's work before, and obviously Scott, who I'm very friendly with. I look at his work, and I hate him more and more every day. But I realize, and it's something that he said to me at one point that I've really been trying to take to heart, which is we all look at each other's stuff, and we all hate each other because we're so enamored of everybody else's stuff. So I'm trying to not be as hard on myself, but for those of you that are out there that really want to, you think if I just win this contest and I just fudge this a little bit, it won't take long to be found out that it was faked. It won't be long before because as soon as you win, people are looking for ways to tear you down. I mean, and that's just the industry.
Yeah.
just compete with yourself. Don't worry about everybody else. Like, try to shoot your best, try to do whatever makes sense for you. And yeah, you're going to get frustrated, and yeah, it's going to be annoying as hell, and you're going to lose out on gigs. But at the end of the day, you're a professional photographer for a living. There are a lot of people that set out to do that and don't make it. The average lifespan when I first came into the business full-time almost 14 years ago now, I mean, I've been shooting my entire life, but when we officially opened, the average lifespan of a new studio that was opening was 5 years. It is now 1.8. Yeah. If you can get past, we're going into our 13th year, officially 13th year. We set up shop right when the economy took a shit, and we're still here. So there's enough business out there for everybody. There's enough work out there for everybody. Don't worry about winning a stupid contest, and please don't fake your shots, because you will be found out. And no matter what you say or do, you will never be taken seriously again. And that's the best piece of advice that I at least wanted to leave with tonight. For anybody that happens to be watching.
Very, very good advice.
Good words of wisdom, BP. I'm gonna have to create a meme and put "Don't fake your shots." BP Miller underneath.
I've got some shots of Zach from Northern Short that haven't seen the light of day yet. I'll send them to you, and you can use those.
Oh, great! I'll have to meme my Zach as well. Perfect. All right, well, that's going to bring us to the end of our show. I want to thank you all for listening. It's been a great show. I want to thank you, BP, for bringing on, coming on the show. Obviously, you've highlighted so much. Is there anything else you'd like to push? But actually, would you like to push your own stuff before you?
Not the way I'm shooting now. No. We are one of the things that Chorus Photography is trying to really institute is more of a mentorship program and consulting and stuff like that. And if anybody's out there that is just starting out, that wants, you can't get the ear of anybody, contact us. Like, we will talk with you. My feeling is that the photographers that are now starting to come up, I met a lot of great photojournalists at the Northern Short that are just coming out of college. There's a lot of great talent that's out there, and people aren't giving them a shot because they'd rather give the shot to Uncle Bob, because he's cheaper. If you're having a hard time figuring stuff out, reach out to me. Like, it's not hard to find me. I'm on the Book of Faces. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter for whatever that's worth. And I don't use it nearly as much as Zach to call people out, but occasionally I'll write about something. But in general, reach out to us. There are a lot of good people in this industry, and you're looking at 3 of them in addition to myself that are up on the screen right now. Reach out to any of us. Like, you're not alone, and if you're having a crisis of conscience or not sure where your place is coming out of college, there are a lot of people out there that'll talk to you. And I'm huge into mentorship. And to the professionals that are out there, if you're not giving your time, if you're not willing to mentor somebody, rethink that. Because think about how much further you would have come along earlier in your career if you had somebody that was there to kind of help you along and whisper in your ear from time to time. It's a huge help, and it's something that I truly believe in. So that's my push for tonight. Don't worry about my work, because right now it's all crap, but it'll come back.
All right, great. We'll come back on when it's not crap.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm going with.
All right, Zach, anything you want to push out before we sign off?
No, he just signed off.
I did not sign off. My computer has decided to sign me off several times.
Zach, where is he? Zach.
Wait, I don't see him.
Zach would like to promote good computers that don't drop the connection.
I would not like to promote Asus computers and laptops, and nor would I like to promote Skype either right now. So,
all right. Travis, anything in your world coming up that we need to be aware of?
You just stole everything I was going to say about reaching out, but I'm going to double onto it. As chairman of APA New York, which is American Photographic Artists, we are definitely built on the community of helping people and being a support system for people to ask for advice, to get further knowledge, for networking, for advocacy. And it's very important to have a group of people that you can bounce off ideas for, whether it's to just test and see what your work's at, to ask where you should show your work, to find out where you should value your work. All of this is very important stuff, and we have to stick together and really kind of promote each other and be advocates for each other, and it's very important. So check out APA, and also check out all these guys, and check us out on Around the Lens, and write some viewer mail.
That's right. We'll read it on the show, and we'll talk about it. Thank you again for the great discussion point there, Dave Bottoms. Appreciate that. And I just want to, again, promote our episode 169 coming up next week. We're going to have Kevin Eby. He is a wilderness photographer. You can find his work out at livingwilderness.com. So get yourself smart on who he is and what he's done, and so that you'll be ready to watch his appearance next week. All right.
Can I real quick?
Please.
You guys are kind of moving forward really great. I think last time I was on, I think I was like 102 or something like that. I forget the last one. Whenever you guys get up to 420, can I just make sure that I'm on that episode?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I just want to call dibs on
whenever that is. You'll be there.
I love it.
God.
That's awesome.
That'll be.
We'll have to do that one
420.
live. We'll have to do that one live.
That'll
Colorado.
be.
It's
We'll
Exactly,
have been on the air
exactly.
for like 8.5 years by then. Isn't that crazy, Zach? Huh? Think we'll make it that far?
Already getting my gray whiskers in my beard just from.
Oh
this-
man.
I'm sorry. Is there something wrong with Great Whiskers?
No, there's nothing
That's
at
right.
all.
There's nothing right. All right, just making sure.
And we're gonna be some real old farts
As
by
long
then.
as I keep the hair up here, I'm fine with the whiskers here.
All right. Well, I want to thank BP Miller so much for taking time out to be on our show. Truly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
For Zach Roberts and Travis Keys, I am David J. Murphy. This has been Around the Lens episode 168, and we are out.
Go out to the.
Here we go again. Here we go again. Woo!
Thanks, everybody. Great time. Thanks. Zach, I'll talk.